Okay, folks, I've been wanting to review this movie for a while, but I wanted to find a VHS copy out in the wild, and I finally came across one a couple of days ago. We are going to be reviewing the 1999, they call it a sleeper hit, The Blair Witch Project. This is an Artisan Entertainment VHS. This movie has an 87-minute runtime, and it is rated R. It is considered to be the precipice of sparking the found footage genre, so you wouldn't get a movie like Paranormal Activity or Cloverfield if it wasn't for this movie. This movie was directed by some University of Florida film students, Eduardo Sanchez and Daniel Myrick. So in 1993, while they were going to the University of Florida, they had watched a lot of paranormal documentaries, and they found those movies more frightening than actual studio production horror films. Although they were inspired by a lot of movies like The Shining or even Jaws, they wanted to make kind of a documentary. I guess you can call this a mockumentary. They wanted to make a film that was kind of like the paranormal documentaries, the real-life paranormal documentaries that they had been watching. So this movie dates back to 1993, but it was made around 1997, and it was filmed on location in the forest, in the wilderness in Maryland. I did not write the name of the town, but it's a real-life town. But what makes this movie famous is the actors that were in the film. There's 3 actors. They used their real names. They were cast based off of their ability to improvise. No real script, kind of like the final season of Curb Your Enthusiasm. I found out that show just kind of had a loose guideline, and then everybody just did improvisation. Same thing for this. They would leave clues out in the wilderness of what was sort of supposed to take place. So originally the movie had a budget between $35,000 and $60,000. But it skyrocketed to between $200,000 and $750,000 in post-production. Over 20 hours of raw footage for this film was shot. Interesting fact, the actors were the ones actually filming and doing the improvisation. So they used a Sony Handycam, high 8mm tapes, and a CP16 16mm camera. Black and white film stock. So what you see in the movie is actually shot by the actors and then edited from 20 hours of raw footage down into the 81 minutes, or I don't know why the VHS says 87 minutes, but online it said it was 81 minutes. Anyway, you get this movie, and then they created this whole fictitious story and world that was marketed as being real life because they used the actors' real names. And during all the marketing in 98 and 99, they did not allude to the fact that this was a fiction story. And there was a website, Help Us Find These Missing People, and this is considered one of the first movies to go viral in the early days of America Online. They had like 160 million clicks, and this was like just kind of one of those word of mouth things. And then people went and they saw it. So it is considered one of the most profitable horror films of all time. It's number 29 on the most profitable horror films, and it is considered one of the most successful independent films of all time. It went on to spawn 2 sequels in the year 2000 and 2016, both of which don't really look like any note. Very low scores for the critics, and people just didn't really care for audience members alike. But this movie is incredibly scary because you never actually see the villain, and that was intentional. They wanted to build suspense, just kind of like, in Jaws 2, right? I can kind of remember being scared because you don't really see the shark right away. You just kind of anticipate that it's going to come, and you anticipate that something's going to happen, and it's building the suspense with just kind of shaky real-life camera movements and them running through the forest at night, and it was terrifying. I had to stop this tape many times and go and do something else and come back because I found myself getting scared. I went into this movie fresh. Obviously I knew about it. I was 12 years old when this movie was released, and I could remember my mom's like, "Oh, this movie's pure evil," and it was supposed to be one of the scariest movies of all time. There's not really any imageries of violence. There is one scene where they find their friend's teeth wrapped in his shirt, spoiler alert, and they used a dentist to get pulled teeth, so those were real human teeth. This movie is a classic. Rotten Tomatoes gives it an 86%. IMDb is 6.5 out of 10. Surprisingly, real life people, over 496 people have submitted their own reviews to Google, and it's a critic, and their average is 3.3 out of 5, and I think they're wrong. I think this movie is a 4 out of 5. The female character, the Heather Donahue, I found her character very annoying at first, but if she's almost kind of the villain in a way, because if she has this very prideful air about her where she's leading her two fellow film students out and she acts like she knows what she's doing and navigating through the wilderness, and she really doesn't, and they end up getting lost, and so she even has an apology at one point where she feels like it was all her fault. There's a house featured at the very end of the movie. It's a historic home in disrepair, and that was filmed in Pennsylvania. It's world class to me, because now that I know that there was no script and they just kind of said whatever, and they had to improvise the whole thing. The raw black and white 16mm footage, very grainy with the spotlight at night, and then I love video 8 tape, and I like that grainy, desaturated color of the film. And then they combine the two, and they have a mask around the frame, so it's not a full 4:3 aspect ratio. It kind of like squeezes it in a little bit, so you feel like you're watching a raw frame footage. And then even the ending of the movie. So they had shot several alternate endings of the movie, but the ending of the movie didn't make sense to a lot of people in the early screenings of the film. So then they had to go back early on in the film and kind of set the precedence so you know what that ending meant. And I won't give that away, but it made sense when I saw it. After I thought about it for a little bit, I kind of understood what happened. So again, I think it's a classic. A lot of use of the F word. I was like almost too much, but this movie has a very 90s feel. The clothing, the whole vibe of the VHS footage. But the beauty of this film is never really showing what's there. And you're scared out of your mind, and then you never really see any acts of violence, and you're just left with this camera falling on the ground in a darkened basement, and then the movie ends, but you kind of understand they're gone. So that's it for this one. 4 out of 5. I'd recommend it. I won't be watching any of the follow-ups because they don't seem worth watching. Until next time, we'll see you then.